Well, what's your main argument in regards to science?
So I've been told, I don't want to like quote you or not quote you incorrectly, but I have had people DM me and say that you said or science-based and Christianity are mutually exclusive. I don't want to
No, no,
misquote you, but that is something that people have said that you quoted.
no. That's not what I believe. That's a total misquote.
Yeah,
So
I kind of figured you wouldn't say that because I feel like
yeah, no. That's so you can believe in whatever you want to believe in terms of faith, and still be capable of doing like science-based lifting. I think that's reasonable to say. I don't
well,
think
not
that's a
science-based lifting, but science-based in general, I think is
yeah.
the
You
point
can,
that they were saying you
yeah,
made. But
yeah. No, you can be science-based and still like have a faith. Like that's I don't think that's entirely mutually exclusive. There's ways you can get around that. Um, that being said, I don't think that science has evidence for religion. That is what I said. Um, so I would stand by the claim that science doesn't have evidence for religion, specifically Abrahamic religions and the existence of an all good, all powerful, all knowing God. Just so you know my belief, I'm atheistic to a Christian, all knowing, all powerful, all good God. I'm agnostic to a theistic type God that like just kind of exists out there and doesn't really do anything because there would be literally no way for me to have evidence or lack thereof of that. However, I do believe that based on like not only physiology but also laws of probability, probability in general, the idea that there is an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good creator would be false.
that is a fair opinion. I'm curious why you're like atheistic towards Abrahamic religions,
There's a few different
like
reasons.
specifically Christianity, because I'm openly Christian, obviously, and I'm curious what your reasoning against Christianity would be.
Yeah, so there's a few reasons. It's spread out across the Old and the New Testament. Uh, but I guess I would have to ask, like, what would your main arguments be as well? I'm kind of
So
curious.
my primary reason for being Christian is I wholeheartedly believe there's more evidence for the resurrection of Jesus than evidence against the resurrection of Jesus. That's what brought me to Christianity roughly about like 8 months ago.
Yeah, I guess I would say that I don't even see any evidence of his body or any evidence that he, like, aside from the Bible itself, there's not really much evidence that he clearly existed, in my personal opinion. That being
You don't
said,
even believe that he existed.
eh, I'm more agnostic to it. There's not really sound
Really?
evidence.
I would say that's a pretty radical opinion. I mean, there's like even not the Bible, like there's the Babylonian Talmud. I mean, there's Josephus, Tacitus. I mean, there is countless text outside of the Bible that talks about the at least the existence of Jesus.
Well, as I said, I'm agnostic to it, so it's not like it's not something that is of big significance to me, and it's also not really what guides my beliefs. Mainly, I would say that um, the idea of an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good God does not. I don't think that you can have all three with the way that our physiology is, and also the way that, like, I guess the creation of Earth and life in the Bible is completely backwards and false. So I
I
would
have
say
no
those two
problem
things are.
covering that later, but I would like to first cover the topic of Jesus not even existing and then the topic of his resurrection because I feel like that's a pretty radical opinion.
I mean, I'm open to granting you that he did exist. I also would say
Okay.
that he didn't resurrect. So like as I said, I'm agnostic, so it's not something that concerns me a lot.
So on his resurrection, so you said you're willing to admit that he could have existed. I would say there's absolutely no doubt. Well, you can't have no doubt to something that happened 2,000 years ago. But I would say there's even more evidence that he existed than even Alexander the Great existed. We have more biographies of Jesus than we have of Alexander the Great. We have more writings of Jesus than we do of Alexander the Great. And a lot of the writings of Jesus are more biblical or not biblically, more like historically recognized than they are of even writings of Alexander the Great. So if you're going to, I don't, I guess I should have started. Do you believe that Alexander the Great existed? Existed?
Well, first of all, there's non-contemporary sources of Alexander the Great existing. So, for example, what is it? There's, I believe, hold the phone one second. Sorry, looking through my notes real quick.
Take your time.
Yeah, so archaeological findings, there's archaeological findings and coinage that were minted during Alexander the Great's lifetime. So that's what I consider non-contemporary evidence. But for Jesus, there isn't really non-contemporary evidence. There's not non-religious documents, like or letters or coins that were from his time that have been found. So, for example, one that a lot of people like to bring up is like the Shroud of Turin or something like that. The Shroud of Turin has been carbon dated to not be from that time, and the
Yeah,
blood.
I think that's a poor piece of evidence. So wait, you're saying what about coins during the time period of Alexander the Great proves that he existed? I'm just curious. I've never heard this.
So
Or like
there
physical evidence.
was, let's see, an adoption of Alexander's image by later rulers are a form of non-contemporary evidence that shows the lasting impact of his reign. So, for example, like equestrian statues of him, like from 336 to 323 BCE. This is from like the Archaeology magazine. So there's a bunch of non-contemporary evidence demonstrating that he did exist. As far as non-contemporary evidence of Jesus existing outside of the Bible and religious contexts, there isn't really that much.
What about
So
Josephus, the
that's
writings of
showing me.
Josephus, the Babylonian Talmud, Pliny the Younger, Polycarp, Tacitus? I mean, these are all like popular biographers at this time, many of which are against Christianity or even promoted. Like, let's just
So
use one of
wait,
them.
wait. I just want to pause real quick because I believe the several passages in the Talmud are believed to be by some scholars to be references of Jesus, but that doesn't mean it's definitive. And I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Hmm. Yeah, so this seems to be more up for interpretation rather than something that's definitively fact.
So, how about we just use Josephus, for example? We have 500,000 words written from Josephus. He was paid for by three different Roman emperors. He's clearly on the side of the Romans. And he definitively says that Jesus existed. And I'm, I'm not even getting
It's
into the
not
resurrection
considered
yet.
it's not considered definitive proof. So while some of it can be believed by some individuals, most of them are pro-Christian, and a lot of scholars are actually under the interpretation that it was altered or interpolated by Christian
A
scribes, and
lot
hence
are
are
under
being
the
pro-Christian.
interpretation that it was altered. I do believe that is a minority. I mean, if you just look at his text, so the ones that say it was altered say that he's clearly speaking differently in the passages talking about the resurrection of Jesus. They're more talking about the evidence of the resurrection of Jesus is altered. But if
So
there's a great book. I really wish I had the title of the book.
So we
I have
could
my
go back
computer
and
here.
forth, but these aren't non-Christian statues. These aren't coins. This isn't tomb. This isn't non-contemporary evidence. This is like up for interpretation. It's not something that I would consider to be hard fact evidence, which is why I'm agnostic to it. Which is why I'm saying like I don't if he existed or if he didn't exist, that's not really something I would argue about because it's like it's all up for interpretation by the books.
I don't I don't see how having a Roman biographer from this time period paid for by three emperors that we use for historical text all of the time can't be used as evidence for the existence of somebody at this time, especially when the Romans are the ones that killed Jesus and they are openly admitting their primary biographer from this time period, Josephus, is openly admitting the existence of Jesus.
And yet a lot of scholars believe that it has been altered and interpolated by later Christian scribes.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of scholars, but not most scholars. Most scholars are going
But a
to
lot of
agree that Josephus is a lot. I mean, you could say a lot of scholars say a lot of things. A lot of scholars
yeah,
disagree
so
with a lot of different things.
why would I take opinions when I'm looking for like hard evidence? That's why I'm agnostic to it.
That's fair. But, ooh, to, I mean, I suppose that's fair, but I mean, it's almost impossible to have. Why is my charger's caught? It's almost impossible to have definitive proof of Jesus. It's all going to be a probabilistic thing.
There's
Rather
definitive
you
proof
believe
of
in
mummies.
atheism. What'd you say?
There's definitive proof of mummies. There's definitive proof of dinosaurs existing. There's definitive proof of the age of the earth being much older than the Bible says it is.
Yeah, but definitive proof of an entire, like mummies, for example, definitive proof of something like Egypt or ancient Egypt is much easier than definitive proof of one singular person existing. The
There's
only way we could
definitive
have
proof of
definitive
the age
proof
of
of
the
this one
earth.
person existing.
And there, well, actually,
Yeah, but
mummies
then,
are definitive proof of one person existing. So that would be definitive proof of a pharaoh existing. And the burials show that people existed in those cities. They're definitive proof of
but then the
single
resurrection
cities.
itself is like a counter evidence to the possibility of Jesus existing because his body was missing. One of the primary
I don't see how
arguments
that
for the
follows.
resurrection of Jesus is proof that he could never exist then in that argument.
So we've never seen any kind of. I don't see how that follows because if his body never existed, wouldn't there at least still be a tomb?
There is a tomb.
No, there's not.
What do you mean there's not a tomb?
Where is it?
In Bethlehem or wherever he died. I believe it was Bethlehem. I don't know if it was Bethlehem for sure.
Didn't it get destroyed or destroyed?
I mean, things from
And
that
it was
area
never
always get destroyed,
analyzed
but we have
either.
writing saying
It was never
it was there.
carbon. It was never analyzed. It was never like there was nothing that happened to provide hard evidence of it. Like if we had hard evidence of not only the tomb, but hard evidence of some kind of like bone or something, like even if he resurrected, he would still have to have died at some point.
Yeah, but we don't know where or if he's truly God, why does he have to die at some point? Why
If he
could he
was a
not
prophet,
ascend into heaven?
wait, if he was a prophet and he resurrected and then his physical body died, then wouldn't they give him a proper burial? Wouldn't there be documentation of this occurring?
Of his resurrection?
No, of him. Obviously, there's documentation in the Bible, but of course, that's still contemporary evidence, as I said. But either ways, what I'm saying is, if he resurrected and then lived out the rest of his life, because he would
He
still
didn't live out the
be.
rest of his life. He was resurrected. He showed himself to some select people and then went up to heaven.
So his physical body was still in the tomb.
No, the tomb, even the Romans admit that his body was missing from the tomb. The Roman
So
argument is that
where did his physical body go?
it was resurrected. He was resurrected. He showed himself to some people and then went up to heaven.
So his physical body just went poof.
Yeah, I don't know what else
So
to
you're
tell you.
expecting me to
That is
believe that?
that yeah, if he is God, why is
Why would
that
I
a
believe
crazy
that?
argument? Assuming Christians are correct and there is an all-powerful God, why is it crazy to believe that a singular body went poof?
Because so many things, because the
That
Bible
is
gives so
God.
many things, no, because so many things in the Bible are wrong. So for example, the age of the earth, we know definitively is not the age that the Bible says it is. The Bible says that
The
the
Bible
rabbit
never
or the rock
definitively
badger
says
or
what
the
the age of the
rock
earth is.
hyrax choose cud, and they don't. They physiologically do not. They say that creatures were brought in according to their kind, which is also incorrect. They were brought in through evolution. They also say that,
The Bible
what is
also
this?
doesn't counter evolution.
Yeah, it
I mean,
does.
none of these are definitive proof against the Bible. The
I
Bible is
mean,
not.
but there
Most
is.
Christians
So,
believe in evolution.
wait.
I believe in
So you're saying
evolution.
that the rabbits, the rock badger, or the rock hyrax choose cud when they physiologically cannot?
That one is the only point, and that is in the Old Testament. I believe that's
Also says
Leviticus. Is that Leviticus?
also says the earth is 6 days old.
that is not a literal like we can't treat Genesis as it's not a factual like day by day thing. It is not
Well,
saying
then
that
if it's
Earth is
not
6 days old.
factual, then how can I be sure of any of
It's
the things that the
poetic.
Bible says?
By literally just treating the parts of the Bible that are poetic as poetic and the ones that claim to be actual like
And how do
fact
you
or
know that?
historical evidence as historical evidence. What?
Wait, and how do you know which parts are poetic and which parts are the truth?
I mean, it's debated amongst historians, but I
You're
mean,
just
the
picking and choosing at
Gospels
this
are
point.
biographies. So the Gospels are known to be like more historical. The parts that are written by kings and actual people as happenings of that time are historical. Other parts are more poetic.
So saying that the
Not
earth
every part of
is
the
six
Bible
days
claims to be
old and
historical
creatures
evidence.
were created according to their kind, that was just poetic?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Why? And why is it not the fact that you were saying before? You're just picking and choosing which ones are historical and which ones are poetic.
It's not picking and choosing. I mean, Christians all agree
But you
that
are.
parts of the Bible are more poetic, like
If
Proverbs,
wait,
for
wait, wait.
example.
If all Christians agreed, then I wouldn't have so many people come to my life saying evolution doesn't exist.
I would argue that they are not true Christians.
So who gets to decide that? Is that who's deciding that exactly? Are you the leader of all Christians?
I am not the leader of all Christians, but there are
Okay, so
different
then how can you say they're
disciplines
not true
of
Christians?
Christianity. I'm sorry, what did you say?
How can you say they're not true Christians then?
They're believing something that is just provably false and saying that the Bible backs it when the Bible does not.
But it says that God, so according to Genesis 1:24, and God said, "Let the earth bring
Once
forth
again, a
living
poetic
creatures
verse.
according to their kinds."
Yeah,
That
once again a
implies that
poetic
they were
verse,
just
but I
brought.
mean, sorry, what did you say?
That implies they were just brought in. And if you don't ascribe to Genesis, then how exactly did God create or design humans when clearly there was no design?
There, I feel like this is straw manning a clearly
It's not
poetic
straw manning.
verse.
I'm just bringing up the Bible.
Yeah, but you're using one singular text that I've admitted is more poetic than anything. I'm more of a New Testament purist. Most of the Old
Okay,
Testament is
so the
seen as
rabbit, the rabbit, the rock badger, the rock hyrax does not chew
all
cud.
Old Testament.
They do chew cud. Or sorry, no, other way. The rabbit, the rock, oh my god, dear lord. The rabbit, the rock hyrax, or the rock badger, though it chews cud, does not have a divided hoof and is therefore unclean for you. This verse is from a larger section in Leviticus 11, 1 through 16. In the Catholic version, it also says the rock badger. In the International version, it says rabbit. In King James, it says rock hyrax. In pretty much every single version, it says an animal that definitively does not chew cud.
So the Bible getting something wrong means that Josephus, a author of Roman text and a Roman biographer, proves that
Which
or
a
because
bunch
the
of
Bible gets one
scholars,
thing wrong means
we've
that we
already went
can't take.
over this. Which we wait before we go through that because we've already went over this. A bunch of scholars believe it was altered or interpolated by later Christian oh my god dear by later Christian scribes, and we've already went over why should I believe what you're saying when other people who know a lot more about this than me believe it to not be true.
So, yes, but there are also people who know a lot more about this than both of us who believe it is true. And more people believe it is true than
But
not. We can't say
I
just because
ascribe
somebody
to definitive
disagrees.
evidence like a mummy. So you're telling me, somebody who ascribes to definitive evidence, to believe the word of a scholar who I don't know is biased.
Okay, so can we both agree that there are Christian scholars who are biased, who will twist teachings just to say that things in the Bible are true? Can
So
we
why
both
should
agree
I
to
believe
this?
the ones who are saying that Josephus is referring to Jesus?
What do you mean? I don't see your point here. But can we both agree
So
that there are
you're
Christian
saying that
scholars?
Josephus's writings were definitive proof of Jesus. I'm saying they weren't because it's widely believed by scholars that it was altered or interpolated by later Christian scribes to make it sound more pro-Christian. So I
But when
am
you do an
ascribing
entire
to
analysis
those
of the
scholars
text,
who are not biased.
but when you do an entire analysis of the text, the writings talking about Jesus are the same as the writings across the entire thing. And why is it that this text is altered after there was mass production of, or mass, like, a lot of people knew about this text,
Because
right? It
it's
was
a
written by the
religious
Romans, it was
text.
guarded by the Romans, and then the Christians somehow, who are this small group who are being prosecuted, get the like one of the most important texts to the Roman
It was
Empire
later
and are able to
altered.
alter it.
It was later altered, so it wouldn't have been altered like immediately afterwards, first of all. Second of all,
But then
just
what
to
about
like
all of the
bring this into
people that read
perspective,
it, were taught to
Christianity had a really big boom where a lot of people, it was a very influential religion at the time, where it was taken to more like truth than a lot of science. So, for example, before the idea of like spherical Earth and the idea that the sun was at the center of the universe, this at the center of the solar system instead of like the Earth, a lot of people like debated that, and somebody even got unalived because of that. I'm sure you're aware, because of
Mhm.
religion, because religion was very influential. So why wouldn't Christian scribes want to alter the texts to make it sound like people existed, even if they weren't there, they didn't know?
So where is the original text then if we only have the altered one? Are you telling me all of the original text is completely gone?
Are you referring to the Josephus stuff?
Yes. We can leave the Bible completely out of this, even
Wait,
though
why?
Matthew, Mark,
Why
Luke,
leave the
and John.
Bible out when that was the first text?
I would like to talk about the Gospels as well, as I believe the Gospels are historically accurate text.
How
And I think there's a
exactly is
lot
it
of proof that the
historically
Bible's.
accurate if the rabbit, the
So,
rock hyrax, and the
so
rock
that's not the
hyrax
Gospels. That's the Old
cut?
Testament. We're talking
That's
about
the
the
New
Gospels:
Testament.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
That's the New Testament. The one with the
That's
rock hyrax, that's
Leviticus.
the New
Is that
Testament.
not Leviticus?
That is still the New Testament.
Leviticus is the Old Testament.
That's the New Testament.
It's the rules of the Jews, which is the old. I can double check. But either way, yeah, I'm seeing people in the comments say that Leviticus is the Old Testament.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay.
But
Yeah, I can
either
see
way, so
that.
let's just talk about
But
Matthew, Mark,
I
Luke, and
guess you
John.
could also go through Romans 5:12 saying death entered the world through sin. That's definitely not true.
Death entered the world through what?
Death entered the world through sin. Romans
I mean,
5:12.
that if we argue that, that's just a point that neither one of us can ever prove. But let's just
That's not
say
true.
Matthew, Mark,
Dinosaurs
and Luke, and
existed
John.
way before humans and quote unquote sin.
Okay, but Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You said that
Wait,
they are
don't
not
don't
as
just skip
historically
over
accurate.
that. Don't just skip over
What'd you
that.
say?
I said that dinosaurs existed way before human sin, and so technically death would not have entered the world through sin, considered they died far before humans even existed. Humans and human
I,
sin.
I I can't speak on this as I don't know, but I will say that is definitely a very solid point that I will have to look into after this
Well, you
because
have to bring that up because that's a major point against the New Testament.
absolutely, and I think that's a great point, and I've never heard that before, and I'll look into this. But going back to the Gospels not being a historically accurate text, they are definitely historically accurate. Like most definitely, most historians agree that the Gospels are historically accurate text.
So I'm not a
And we're
historian, so I'm not the one to debate on the Bible. I'm more so debating on the existence of an all-powerful, all-good, all-knowing God. So if you want to talk about that, that's more where we can go into. For example, like if you want to talk about fine-tuning, of like human design, we can go into that. I'm not a historian, so I can't
the
really
thing with
speak
all
on the
of
Bible.
the thing with all of these, like those arguments you want to cover, I'm happy to, but those are not as provable, right? It is a matter of opinion, right? It's
No, it's not.
what probabilistic fact do you want to believe in? What do you
No,
mean?
no, it's not. So we don't even have priors, so we can't determine the probability of like
Exactly.
fine-tuning
We can't.
constants.
Right. Exactly. We don't.
So
We
there's
cannot
no way
calculate
to
the
say that it's
probability.
fine-tuned.
Sorry. What did you say?
I said you can't even say it's fine-tuned because there's no priors.
So, assuming we are the only universe, right, right. There's no way to calculate the probability of the constants of the universe. We don't know if they're even alterable. We don't know if there are other universes, if they all follow the same physics constants or anything like this. So there's no point arguing this because neither one of us can really prove our point because we don't know why the universe was created or like what laws bind the physics
The
constant.
majority of physicists don't even believe the universe was created or that it had a beginning.
Yeah, but this is once again, well, a beginning, the Big Bang.
No, that's not the beginning. So, according to the Copenhagen Survey on Black Holes and Fundamental Physics, approximately 68%, almost 70% of physicists believe that the Big Bang was meant that the universe evolved from a hot, dense state, not an absolute beginning of time. And the reason for this is according to DESI dark energy data, the dark energy of the universe is slowly weakening over time, which is suggestive of an eventual collapse and then another expansion. So it'll go through eternal collapses and expansions. So, contrary to popular belief, most people who are agnostic or atheistic like myself, we don't believe that something came from nothing. We just believe that it was always there.
Which is fair, but once again, this is debated amongst physicists, so I don't know why
No,
we
it's
would be
not.
able to
70% of them
debate
believe the
it.
same thing.
Yeah, what about the other 30%?
That's the minority. Why would I take the minority opinion of professionals in the field of their
So
profession?
why is that argument fine for physicists but not historians? When I say the majority of historians believe
But the
one thing,
majority of them
and you
don't.
say,
Do
but
you have statistics of that?
huh?
But the majority of them
For
don't.
Josephus,
Yeah, the majority of them
um,
don't. Provide me
a
with some
majority
statistics that
of
atheistic
historians use
scholars
Josephus
actually
as
believe
historically
that.
accurate text.
Provide me with evidence that the majority of atheistic scholars actually believe that.
So that's like saying, okay, if I had definitive proof that Jesus was resurrected and I showed somebody
No,
and
I'm
or
providing
Jesus
evidence
resur
that the majority of physicists don't believe that the Big Bang. They're
this
professionals
is
in
a
the field and
hypothetical.
they're unbiased.
Hypothetically, Jesus resurrects in front of somebody and like 100% Jesus, he's resurrected, he's right there, and that person is now Christian. We can't disregard their writings just because they're Christian and say, oh, well, he's Christian, let's disregard that writing and only use atheist writing. That's
Josephus
unfair.
doesn't mention the
Obviously, if we're using
resurrection.
only atheist historians, it's going to be a different perspective. You
Josephus
need to
doesn't
take,
mention the resurrection.
what'd you say?
I said Josephus doesn't mention the resurrection.
He does not, but he says that most people in this time believe in the resurrection of Jesus, which means that he is at least mentioning the possibility of the resurrection.
And again, as I said, it's widely believed that by scholars that it was altered. Now, unless you can provide me with the same statistics I gave you from the Copenhagen survey, that atheistic, unbiased scholars widely believed
Atheistic,
that
unbiased
Josephus,
scholars. That's
atheistic,
atheistic
unbiased
scholars.
scholars, yes.
That is that is biased towards atheism.
Yes, exactly. If it's biased towards atheism and they all say that it was referring to Jesus, I'm going to be more likely to believe that because it's individuals who are biased against that understanding. Why would I take the opinion of somebody who already is inclined to believe that Jesus existed? I would rather take the opinion of somebody who's like, yeah, I don't know if Jesus existed. However, this really does look like Jesus existed. So if the majority of those individuals do believe that, and they are scholars in their field, then I'm going to be more inclined to take their word on it.
I don't see how we could possibly say Josephus is not a historical text. Sorry. I'm trying to pull up my
Oh
computer.
my god, I didn't say that. You're strawmanning me.
We're saying
I did not say that.
I feel like every time I say sorry, I don't mean to strawman you, but I feel like every time I say Josephus is widely regarded as a historically accurate text, you disagree.
So the reason why I say that is because the majority of historians believe the passage in Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews that discussed Jesus was altered by Christian scribes.
Some
And
scholars do believe this, but
the
this is
reason for
not the
this.
majority.
Oh, really? So then provide me with evidence of individuals who are not inclined to believe that Jesus existed saying that it wasn't altered. Because right now
There's
I'm looking at it and it seems like the majority.
sorry, there is a book
You
I'm trying to
mentioned that
find it.
Josephus isn't even a witness himself, so there's that as well.
Right, Josephus was not a witness of the resurrection, but he was a like paid by the
Saying
Romans at the time.
saying I heard rumors about this is not the same as saying I saw this. That's one thing. Second thing is it is widely believed by historians that it was altered. So unless you can provide me with evidence of the I guess the opposite of that, then I'm
I'm
inclined to
literally just
believe that. So like you're just giving me
I
things
literally
like
just look up was
believe that I
Josephus altered.
yes, historians believe that the passage in Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews that discussed Jesus was altered by Christian scribes. Like, I keep seeing this everywhere here. Let me see if I can find a PubMed article on it, maybe. I don't know if historians publish in
I don't know
PubMed.
if they cover history. But when I
Uh,
literally just Google, was Josephus widely recognized as altered? It literally just says no. I don't know.
yes. So, most famously, in his. Let's see if I can find a good one here. And also, that would just be so let's see. This guy. So the majority, this is according to an article here. The majority of scholarship thinks that the present version was altered by a Christian interpolator, and this is according to the figure of Pontius Pilate in Josephus compared with Philo and the Gospel of John by Christian Gers Uphouse. This is published in MDPI, which is a pretty reputable journal, which is in the Journal for Religion. And the quote specifically was that although the present author shares the opinion that the testimonian was originally written in some way by Josephus regarding the context, probably by remembering another disturbance, the majority of scholarship thinks that the present version was altered by a Christian interpolator. The original wording is now lost, and therefore the Josephian motive for introducing the text here is not recognizable anymore. So, yeah, I don't see this as any strong evidence or definitive evidence that Jesus existed.
There was there was an entire.
This
I
is an
really wish I could
article in
find the book.
MDPI. If like, take it up with the article, not me. I'm not like, don't shoot the
Right, but I
messenger.
don't get why one side gets to pick biased sources
This is
of
not
this
a
is what
biased
atheists
source.
believe,
This is an
and the other side.
article in a reputable journal. This isn't a
Right, but you
biased
can't
source.
say right, but their journals are wrong all of the time. That's just how things are, right? Like,
Scientific
what if I have
journalists,
a
peer
different journal that
review.
disagrees with that? If I have a
Do you
different
know how
journal
peer
that
review
disagrees with
works?
that, why is your journal any better than this one?
Do you know how peer review works?
I do know how peer review works.
Okay, so it means that multiple professionals have to sign off on this article. They signed off on this
Absolutely,
article.
yes. But if I have
And therefore,
another
they
journal
signed
that
off
says
on
that,
that line.
but if I have another journal that has a different perspective, why is your journal any better than this one?
Because it's peer reviewed. Can you provide me with your
Right.
article?
I will find or look, but uh,
Just so you know, this article was from 2020, so preferably something later than that.
I mean, I am definitely no expert in finding peer-reviewed journals, but I am having a lot of things on Google Scholar pop up with the terms of Josephus believed not to be altered. And I mean, I'm not a
The
scientist
article,
like
or
you
was
are. I don't
it?
know
Let's
what.
see let's see the full text. Click on the full text.
What do you mean?
So if
Do you
you're
want to
Google
see what I'm
Scholar,
looking at?
so if you have Google Scholar, I want you to copy and paste the title, look it up, and then let's read the full text because there's a few different things in here. So there's no convincing evidence that Josephus wrote any part of it according to one of the opinions in this one. There's also, let's see. Uh, interpolation. Yeah, so the solution would, let's see, where is it? So a lot of the issues with the wording is actually resolved by a Christian interpolator here. And this is according to another article in Brill. Josephus' paraphrase style and the testimonian flat. I'm really bad with Latin, so I'm sorry. Flavin, flav,
No problem.
Flavnium. I hope I did that right. But it's also
I trust
published in
you.
2021. This is published by multiple people, actually. Or actually, no, just one. Gary Goldberg. But there's that one. There's also the one that I wrote there with by Uphouse. Let's see. So this is really highly discussed.
It is one of the most comprehensive texts from this time period. No other
And the
biographer
most
from this time period
controversial.
provided 500,000 words.
And the most controversial.
It is very controversial.
Yeah, because
Wait,
most
what was
people actually
controversial?
believe that he wrote it. Most people believe there was a Christian interpolator.
Okay.
At least in historian realms. I'm pulling up.
I'm literally
I'm
just
still waiting for the article. Would you like to look up the ones that I gave you? I can give you the DOI.
I'm happy to look at them after this, but
Okay.
I don't see why we can believe atheist sources and say, hey, these atheists say
Source.
this is altered, therefore it's altered, and your Christian sources that say it's most likely not altered.
But this isn't an atheist source.
Right,
This
yes,
is a
you have a
historian
peer-reviewed
source.
journal. I didn't know I had to come in here with peer-reviewed journals, but
Well,
I
if you're
listen
going
to
to try to
atheists.
tell me that something is a historical fact, then yeah, I'm expecting I'm expecting reputable sources that have been reviewed by multiple professionals to ensure their
And
accuracy.
the longest biography that we have from this written time period that every historian references when talking about this
It's not every
time
historian,
period
though.
is not a reputable journal.
No, most historians
reputable
believe that
fact.
it was altered
Oh, altered doesn't mean that it's not completely false.
by a Christian interpolator.
And once again, that is just one source. Then we have all of the Gospels as well that all line up. So if we have 5 texts,
Well,
I'm not even mentioning
you're talking about two different
Tacitus.
texts now. Now you're talking about two different texts. So one of the
Yeah.
texts has a bunch of inaccuracies that some are poetic, some are factual. We can't really determine which one's which.
So once again, just the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the biographies of Jesus.
Why only those?
Those are the Gospels about Jesus. That's what I'm trying to argue.
I'm
is the
asking
proof of
you,
Jesus.
why do you only take the New Testament as like what's accurate?
We're just talking about Jesus here. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those are the Gospels of Jesus.
Is that all that you take from the Bible in terms of like what's?
No, that's all that's relevant to this conversation. So
But
if we're
it's
talking
not.
about
We're talking about the existence of a God, not just the existence.
I just want to talk about the existence of Jesus. Just the
Why?
existence of Jesus.
Why?
Because that's the point that you made earlier that I'd like to cover.
I said that I was agnostic to it because, like, I'm fair. I don't care if I grant that he existed. I'm still not granting that he resurrected.
Right, and we
No
can
matter
get
what
to
I
that
do, I'm
later.
not going to grant something that's physiologically impossible.
Right, but if God is real, right,
But I
from
don't
my
believe
perspective,
that.
huh?
But I don't believe the Christian God is real, so why would I grant that?
Right, but I do. So can we
I
just
don't.
have a hypothetical from my perspective for one moment?
Well, if we're arguing about the existence of a God, shouldn't we be sticking to that instead of jumping over to the existence of the resurrection of Jesus? Like, why would I grant you something that I don't personally ascribe to just so that way you can grant further things? Like, I'm just granting you the belief of, like, a God. Like, you're trying to debate me on something I don't believe in and telling me, like, to grant you things that go against what I believe in. Like, do you see how that doesn't make sense?
So the thing that brought me to God is the resurrection of Jesus and the history of the resurrection of Jesus. That is why that is what I would like to talk about.
But
So,
you wanted to come in here to talk about God, so why don't we just talk about God? Like, I'm confused why we can't just talk about that.
because, okay, we started with that. I said, "Do you believe that Jesus existed?" You
I
said
said I'm
no.
agnostic. No, I didn't say no. I
Right.
said I'm agnostic to it.
Okay, yes. You said you're
Which means
agnostic
I
towards
can
it,
grant
and I would
it.
at least like to cover this first.
Okay, so I said I could grant it. I'm just not granting
Okay.
that he got resurrected. So I can
So
grant
now I'm
that and
fine with
still
covering
not
the
believe
resurrection.
that he resurrected. That doesn't change my initial thing that I said, which is I'm agnostic to it because I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest for hard reality, yes, he existed. Just because I say that doesn't mean I don't believe he existed entirely. It just means I'm
Okay.
agnostic to it.
So so now that we can semi-agree that he existed, I am fine with talking about the resurrection.
Dude, I've said this the entire time that I'm agnostic to it.
Okay.
That's not like I didn't say the entire time that I don't think he existed. I like that's it's impossible that he existed. No, I said I'm agnostic to it, meaning I'm okay to grant it. I said that at the very beginning. I'm gonna keep saying it.
So now the resurrection of Jesus. The
Still
Gospels
no.
all mention it. Sorry, what?
Why should I take the Bible to be accurate when there's a ton of things that
Okay.
are inaccurate in it?
So every single one of the Gospels passes the last name test, which is essentially if we had, for example, a writing from Serbia today that was uncovered 1,000 years from now, and they had the name Nikola in that writing, that name better have a last name because it's a very popular first name in Serbia. So in the Bible, all of the most popular first names from these areas at this time are followed by a last name or a qualifier. So that is one of the first tests that you can use to see if a historical text is historically accurate. The second one that we can use is floralness. Two of the Gospels talk about trees and plants and things in this area at this time. Both of those are trees and plants from the area that Jesus died at this time. These two tests combined can at least tell us, I'm not saying that they are factually true, but at least the writer came from this area at this time period.
So just looking through here, just because there's last names doesn't necessarily mean that the entire thing is going to be historically accurate.
But
That's the first
but
thing
it's
that I
first
want to
names
cover.
from this time period at this time and last
Yeah,
names from
so
this
I
time
could
period.
write
For
I
example,
could write something based off of paperwork that I find on my desk. Does that
could
mean
you
that
write me a
what I'm
story?
writing is the original text?
Could you write me a story from France right now using French names off the top of your head and accurately get the most
But that's
popular
not what
French
would have
names?
happened. That's not what would have happened.
That is what happened because the
No, no,
Gospel of
no. What would
Thomas.
have happened was somebody who is around, maybe not close, not in that time, but close to that time, was around that time, was familiar with the social area around there, could have written texts using the last names from that time. Do you see how that doesn't necessarily tell you that everything that is written there is historically accurate?
It's at least somebody from the area from the time
That
period.
doesn't
I
mean it's
agree. I didn't say it's
accurate.
historically accurate.
That
I,
doesn't
I
mean it's
agree.
accurate. I could write a fictional story with names that are around during my time, like Ben and Bob, but that doesn't mean that everything I'm writing is
Yes, I'm
historically
not trying to
accurate.
argue it's historically accurate. All I said is
You
that
said it
proves that that
was.
person.
Dude, you literally
No,
said that because they use last names from around that time, that it's historically accurate. That tells
no,
you
I,
nothing.
I, I specifically. Okay, if I did say that, I misspoke. My goal was to say that at least tells us that this person is from this area at this time. I thought I
Okay, that doesn't
specifically
mean
said
anything. That doesn't mean
that
anything.
it's the first step to moving towards historical accuracy. When you are a historian, we can't just jump from not true to all the way to true. We have to work our way there. So, by having these people from this area at this time, or by passing these tests, we can at least say that this person is from this area at this time. It does not necessarily mean it's historically accurate. Would you agree?
Say it again.
Okay. By having by passing these two tests, we can at least show that the people who are writing the Gospels were from this area at this time, not that they are necessarily historically accurate.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything in the context of what we're talking about.
Right. So now we at least have four biographers that are from this area at this time in the Bible, not even including Tacitus, Josephus, and all of these other biographers.
I'm very confused why names matter. Like right now, like specifically now, like you could write a name that is from around this time and write a fictional fairy tale to get popular with people. Like they've done this with like for example horror movies where they use
Yeah,
something
I'm
that
not talking about
is very
historical accuracy
possible
yet.
to wait, just let me finish. That is very possible to have occurred. And then make it a completely fictional story and fool the audience. Like that's very possible to do. That's not like getting names from around the time doesn't tell you the historical accuracy of a book. Now, I
Right.
am just
I'm
looking through
this
this real
stuff.
quick. So I believe you said that you don't really ascribe to any of the Old Testament for whatever reason, right?
I ascribe to large swaths of the Old Testament, but to say that every single part
Like
of
the
it
Big
is
Flood?
written in fact, and to say that the Bible is saying, huh?
Do you ascribe to the Big Flood?
No, I do not. I think it's more poetic.
Okay, so I guess my biggest question would be why are you saying that it's poetic if it's a part of the Bible in that sense? Like, what is making you think that something is poetic versus historical?
I mean, have you ever you said you read the Bible, right?
Uh, yeah, I skimmed through
Have you ever
the
read
New Testament
Proverbs?
though. What'd you say?
Have you ever read Proverbs?
No.
So Proverbs is clearly poetic. It is just a bunch of poems, it's a bunch of advice for how to live your life, right?
That
That's
doesn't
all it
show
is.
you any, that is not explaining like specific things that happened. Saying that a big flood happened, that is saying something happened. That's not
Right.
really
But
poetic.
if you read the rest of the text, it's like stories that are made up to give you a point, right? It's a story so that you can learn a lesson from, right? The same way like Plato or something used to speak. It's poetic.
I mean, like I don't understand where you're getting like you're saying that it's poetic, but like what is making you say that it's poetic? Like some saying something happened, like a big flood happened. That most certainly does not sound poetic to me. That sounds
Yeah,
like you're
that
saying
one
something
statement, but
happened.
if you read the entire story, it comes across as poetic.
That doesn't
I,
how does it come
I'm
across as how does a flood come across as
I
poetic?
don't I would just like to cover what we were covering with Jesus. I don't know why we keep jumping back
Because
to this Old Testament that I've said I'm not
you're
interested
taking the
in.
Bible as a historical book, but you're not recognizing the entire book. That's a big problem.
It's 66 different books.
Okay, you're
Why
still
can I
not
not take
recognizing
four of
all of the
those
stories
books?
that's a part of the problem.
If I stapled one of your journals to Star Wars and said, why are we not considering this entire thing as
Because
accurate?
it's not the same book. So it's not the same story even. So the Bible is the same story in the sense that you're going through one story to the next story to the next story to the next story to the next story. It's a
It's
timeline.
not. It is not a timeline.
It's not a timeline.
The four Gospels all happen at the same time. Proverbs is not a time span at all. It is literally just a list of advice. Leviticus
So
is just the laws of the Jews.
while you were talking here, I've been looking through some historical evidence. Now, I'm not a historian, which is why I was trying to discuss God and the existence of a God, because that seems to be more along like something I could actually argue with you about. I'm not a historian who's going to point out every single historical inaccuracy. That being said, let's see.
And all the people in the comments saying it's 67 books, it is 66 books in the Bible. I'm sorry to break it to you. It's 66 books, 40 authors, 1500 years.
Let's see, where's
I
that
think they're including
here?
the Book of Enoch or the Gospel of Thomas, which is left out for a reason. Sorry, I'm not. I'm just more talking to the chat.
That's fine. I'm trying to find a specific source for this.
I think I just realized they're making a 6-7 joke and not actually arguing.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. Where is it?
And if you want to transition off of Jesus, that's completely fine. We can talk about God.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, like talking about the Bible as if it's a historical document makes no sense to me when you're not even acknowledging the specific stories because you're saying they're just poetic.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are four separate books,
You
completely
think that
separate.
those
Those are
are
the Gospels
historical?
themselves.
You think those are historical and everything else is just poetic?
I don't think everything else, but those four are specifically biographies. They are written as
So what gives you
biographies.
the
They're
right?
not even
So
written
how
by
do you know
Christians.
that oh my God, Math, oh, shit, fucking Lord.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote their books.
So, I mean, if you look at the original text, it is authored as
No,
if
I'm
it is a
asking you, how do
biography
you
from
know
that
that
time
they
period.
wrote those texts? How do you know they wrote those
There
texts?
is no way to know, but that is why I mentioned the last name test earlier. That is why I mentioned the last name test
That
earlier to
doesn't
verify that these are.
matter. That doesn't
It
matter.
absolutely does
No, it
matter.
doesn't.
It proves that that person is at least from that
I
area
could
at
write
the
a
time.
fictional book that influences a bunch of people to believe in my special religion, to pay me money and to treat me like a god. Like I could
That
do
is not a
that.
counterpoint to
That
what I'm
doesn't mean I'm
arguing. It is at
correct.
least a person. It is at least a person from this area at this time. Why would you write a fictional book off of some different name also? Why would all four of them
Because
do
it's
that?
influential, saying that the word of God, you met some really special individual who is like literally a prophet, like meeting specific people who are interconnected with a God that is super influential, that is going to dictate the lives of thousands or hundreds of people. Yeah, that is something that I would write about. And just so
That
you know, like,
that is a
who's
fair
to say
argument
that
because
somebody
that's
who's
exactly what
maybe
got to
from
the time.
10 years later or 50 years later is able to, what is able to recapitulate like the idea of like the names that were around during that time? Because let's be honest, the names Ben, John, Luke, those sorts of names, they haven't changed much over the years. So what exactly do you mean that it's like historical accuracy? Like, yeah,
The
I could
names
write a book with the
absolutely
same
do
names.
change. They absolutely do change. Like if you look even just in the
Why did
US
I have
across
like
the
six
years,
people in my class named Luke?
right, because that's a popular name from our time period.
And clearly a
But
popular name back then too.
do you have anybody did you have anybody in your grade named Bob?
Yeah, actually I did.
Okay, well, my father had five people in his grade named Bob because it was a more popular
Wow,
name
it's
from
almost
his
like
time
names
period.
are not a very good indicator of like
Well,
if
we
whether
can
something
track
is
based
really
on all of
accurate
the
or not.
texts what names are the most popular from these areas at these time period. And we know historically that they change.
And as I said, even if it was written in the same time period, doesn't mean it's historically accurate. So it doesn't really matter.
Right, all I want you to say is these authors were from this area at this time period. Then I can move on to my next point.
And if they were from maybe 5 or 10 years later.
Or 30 years later. Yeah,
Oh
it's
wow. So they
close
could be up
enough.
to 30 years earlier or later from
Actually,
that time
some of the
period.
Gospels were likely
And
written 60 years after Jesus died. Yes.
so how do you know any of that was accurate?
Because, okay, writing
30
at
or
this time
60 years
period,
later?
yeah, yeah, it's a lot. It is, absolutely. But you need
So
to
then
realize,
there's literally no evidence that what they're saying is true. It was just stories passed down.
yes, but writing at this time period was, and verbal language and like passing stories down was a completely different part of their culture. Writing at this time is extremely
Have
expensive.
you ever
It was
played the
something like
telephone game?
22,000 sheep had to die in order for the writings of Josephus. That is
Yeah, I
like
feel so
Elon
bad
Musk
for
levels
those
of
sheep
wealth
that
from
they
this
had to
time
die for
period.
that. I feel really bad for the sheep that they had to die from that. But have you ever played the telephone game?
I have, yes, and things are going to change, which is something that is
Oh, so how
recognized
do
by
you
the
know that the
Christian
resurrection will
historians.
change?
If we That's why we need to compare the four gospels against each other to see how much has changed
And
because they
how do
were
you know
all
that they were
written in
written
different
at?
areas.
How do you know that those gospels were written Not at this at different times, but rather at the same time.
They were written at different times
How do you
between
know?
30 and 60 years after the death of Jesus.
How do you know?
Because that's what's historically recognized. I'm not a historian. I'm not going to Israel and doing this research on my
Okay,
own,
so
so I'm
then
going to
why are you
trust the
debating
historian.
this? Why are you so stuck on debating this? Why can't we just move on to God?
I'm happy to move on to God.
All right, finally. Okay, so let's get into it. So, why do you believe that there is a good, all-powerful and all-knowing God?
For me personally, what changed me was the resurrection of Jesus. But I now have faith in God over faith in atheism.
Why?
Just that we can stay away from the Jesus argument.
Okay, why?
Why? Because of the resurrection of Jesus. It brought me to the Bible, and I now believe that God is more likely than no God.
Okay, so clearly, because we're both not historians, um, moving on to other reasons why you believe in a God. So, why do you believe in an all knowing, all powerful, all good God? Aside from the Jesus thing, since we're both not historians, and we both agreed that we're not going to debate on topics that we can't really strongly debate upon because we neither have good, strong evidence that can definitively prove either side. So, let's move on.
So I suppose faith. I don't really know what answer um, you want other than faith.
So,
Like I can't have scientific proof of no God or of God, so the only way I can believe in either is faith.
so why So, I guess the definition of faith in some way is the belief of something without evidence. So, I'm assuming that you
Absolutely.
also. Okay, cool. So then, yeah, I'm okay with that. And I don't think that that contradicts anything that I've said. Like, honestly, as long as you don't think that science provides evidence of a God, then it's fine with me. I don't care.
I don't. I think science cannot provide evidence of a God. I think
Then we
for
agree.
me, I mean, I like the idea of fine tuning, making sense in my brain. But if we use a multiverse theory and you believe in the multiverse, then you're right. It's not more likely that life exists in this universe versus any other universe.
I don't think you need a multiverse to just not believe in fine tuning.
Or even just our singular universe. If our singular universe exists and this is just the way that physics is, I mean, life was bound to exist somewhere, right? That's a fair argument. There's no way for me to argue against that.
Yeah. So yeah, I like honestly like I as long as like honestly the only time that I've ever disagreed with people is like for I'm not sure if you saw that one video by TNF where he was like talking about how like science provides evidence of God and that's why
I think that's what started this whole thing because I
yeah, I
stitched
think
that
that's
video, I
like this whole
believe.
thing. Yeah, that the only I don't like it when people say that because their science could not provide evidence of God, and like even if you are religious, like I think that most sound-minded religious individuals, including my partner who's a little bit theistic, um, like even Jackson, he's not Christian but he's theistic, and even he thinks that it would be impossible to say that, but I digress. I don't think that there's really much to debate here because, like, we're not historians. I could bring up somebody who I know is really historically, like, well versed, and he has read the Bible more times than I have. I read it for a philosophy class, so it's not like I'm not like a crazy. I didn't haven't memorized every word of it, so
I would be happy to do that sometime. I will say I'm clearly not a historian either. I am just a Christian who believes that I have good reason to believe what I believe.
then yeah, like as long as you're not pushing me to believe in what you believe, I don't.
Right. Which
Yeah.
I don't want to do at all. I think a lot of the stem for like I'm going to use the word hate. I'm not pushing saying that's you at all, but a lot of the dislike for Christianity is due to some Christians who do not are very pushy and don't really have the greatest morals, I would say. You are
Yeah,
lagging. So
there's
I'm just hoping you heard all that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, no. I think that we had a pretty good conversation. we kind of went through most of like what I was going to go through. And I'm also glad that you don't hold the same belief that TNF does because that made my life a lot easier
What
in
was
terms of like
TNF's
how
belief again?
that science provides evidence of God.
Yeah. Is that a quote of what he said?
Yes.
Yeah, I will
I
say,
remember because I watched it like 3 times. I was like, "There's no way he said that," and so I
I will
rewatched it,
say,
and
there's no
like
way science disproves God, and I'm a strong, strong believer of that.
I think it disproves the existence of an all good, all powerful, all knowing God. You can have all three.
I would be happy to discuss this if you would like. Wait,
Sure.
all good, all knowing, all powerful God. I will say all powerful is instantly a paradox in itself, but the other two I think I'm willing to
How is
defend.
that a paradox?
I mean, there's just the question of can God make a stone so heavy he cannot lift, right? There's always a limit to power. So either he can't make the stone or he can't lift the stone.
Yeah, but I think that it would be fair to say that he could design ourselves to not have cancer.
Absolutely. I don't think that just because there's bad in this world means that God is not good.
So if you had a button in front of you and you could press it and cancer would disappear tomorrow, would you press that button?
As a human being, yes, I would.
Why doesn't God press it?
Right. And that is a question that we cannot understand, but we don't understand God. And I mean, there's scripture talking about this, but uh, one moment. I'm flipping through my Bible right now. I mean, in Romans, I think this is a good explanation. For me, this is the one I like to sit with, and that is um, to save some and leave. This is talking about some going to heaven and others going to hell, right? How could an all good God do this, right? To save some and leave others will in the end be more fit to show God's glory than any other scheme or plan we can imagine. While that might not make sense to us, it might not satisfy our curiosity. God's plan is good and wise, and as created things, we have neither the right nor the possible wisdom to question God.
So
So I don't.
so a 10-year-old with glioblastoma who is unalived at the ripe age of 11. That's like if you could press a button to get rid of that, you don't think that that's like it's a bad thing that that did not happen?
I
Or
would press
evil?
the button, and yes, that is clearly a bad thing that could happen. But I feel like there's no way to truly have free will without bad things that can happen. And I believe that is why
But free will doesn't
God
cause
allowed bad things.
glioblastoma.
That's a fair argument.
Yeah, so there's
But
plenty of people with, for example, Huntington's disease, people with prion diseases, people with
but I don't
various
think that's
cancers that
I
these
don't think that's
cancers could be like if our cells were designed in a different way in that sense, like if I were to grant the fact that we were designed, we would be designed in a different way to not have cancer, and that would we would still
so I
have
don't
bad
think
things
that's
happen to us, but we would actually be able to overcome it. We can't fully overcome something that is constantly mutating.
So I don't think that's a sign of a bad God, but maybe just a just God. As
But
we
that's
as
not
sinners,
God.
but we as sinners, as human beings, as sinners, deserve endless punishment in hell. This is what the Bible says.
A
Once
5-year-old
again, it's
does.
hard to wrap our heads around, huh?
A 5-year-old with glioblastoma does, or
It's the
leukemia.
human race as sinners in general,
So a 5-year-old with leukemia is a sinner.
which is absolutely tragic. But I can't put myself in the like in God's place and understand why that is good.
If your parent stole something, should you be punished?
Absolutely, yes.
If your parent,
Stole something?
if your parent unalived someone, should you be unalived?
Oh, should I be punished?
Yeah.
No, sorry. I thought you said should they
Okay,
be
so then
punished?
why are we being punished for the sins of some person who ate an apple millions of years ago, apparently?
Because we as I mean, this is just like like we're getting deep into theology, and this is something that's hard for me to wrap my head around, but this is just what the Christians say. And once again, I don't know if I fully understand this, but this is the Christian argument. I'm more playing devil's advocate than anything here. And that is the humans as sinners have separated us from God, and we cannot understand how evil that action truly is. And all of us deserve to be damned.
Okay, so just
Even
out of curiosity, God created an environment where we had the potential to sin, and then when we did because we didn't know any better, we all got punished. That's like the idea of the whole Adam and Eve story where she ate the
right.
apple and then everybody fell. So my question is if you locked your two children in a room and there was a knife and one of your children unalive the other one, would you punish their children's children and their children's children? And are you the one who's at fault for putting the knife in the room, or is it the child's fault for not knowing any better and picking up the knife and unaliving the other child?
So beside the hypothetical, I feel like we cannot have free will without the possibility and existence of sin. If I created if I was God and I created a human race that was all good, they only did everything that I wanted, they do not have free will. They are robots that do everything that I want. But if I create this human race and allow them to do anything, then I have to allow them to do bad things as well. It's like the
So I'm going to
design
ask you
of
this
us
question.
as humans.
Well, Adam and Eve at first were perfect, and then they fell, right?
Right. Yes, they
Okay,
had
so
not sinned and then they did.
if you put, and Adam and Eve at the beginning were naive, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you put your two children, the children you loved so very dearly, and you wanted to give them free will, so you put them in a room with a knife, and then everything else they could ever possibly need, and then you left them alone in that room. Would that make you a bad parent?
Uh, I suppose, but I feel like this isn't a one-to-one hypothetical.
But it is. Adam and Eve were both naive, like a baby.
Right, but
Yes, they were
that
even
is
babies at that
me.
at time. Like
But
technically, in a sense,
I didn't create the race of my children, right? Once again, I'm back to free will where
you gave
like
birth to your children, or not gave birth, like
right,
you helped make your children. So,
but it's not if I don't give them the knife, they don't have free will, and if I do give them the knife, they do have free will. Whereas that's my view on humanity, which
but they had
is
free will either ways. They didn't need the apple in
right.
there.
What
They had free
yes,
will to live however they wanted. They didn't need an apple in their world that would
but
have caused them to all sin.
if we create a race that everything is perfect and they just do whatever they want, or if we create a race and they can do whatever they want, but they have to follow these guidelines of no sin, then that is not free will. We've put barriers on them. But if we
But
allow
that's
for
exactly what
sin,
he did at first. That's exactly what he did. The only difference was that he had an apple there that would have caused them all to fall, and now they're all sinners.
but if the apple can exist, why not allow for the apple to exist to allow for more free will, if that makes
What are you
sense?
even saying? Because if I put my children in a room with a knife, does that make me a bad
I,
parent? Because in that sense, the apple is the knife. The knife is a test. The apple is a test. So why are we testing our children in terms of whether or not they can pick up a knife, hurt themselves, or hurt each other? Like I'm
I think it's
confused.
because otherwise you don't have free will. You're a robot that has to be sinless. You have to
So you would
allow
put your
for the
kids.
opportunity.
So you would put your kids in a room with a knife.
That is not it. I don't think this is a one-to-one hypothetical.
But it
I would
is.
not put my kids in the room with a knife. But if I, once again, I cannot understand God. But if I were
The
God,
apple represents children at 5 with leukemia and glioblastoma. That's arguably even worse than getting hurt with a knife.
yeah. What's worse is that we as humans chose that option. We allowed for sin and
But we
evil
didn't just choose
by
that
using
option.
that.
God put the option there. He could have chose to not have it there.
And if we don't, I just feel like we're kind of running circles. If we don't have that option there, I
But
feel
he
like we
didn't
don't
need
have
to
free
put
will.
it there. We like our us as parents
Yes.
don't need to put a knife in a room with our children.
I think both of us have equally valid, unarguable points of And we're just kind of running in circles here.
I
Would
don't
you
think we're
agree?
running circles because I'm arguing that I wouldn't put a knife in a room with my children. Just as if I were God, I wouldn't put my creations, my beloved creations, in a room with an apple that would cause their children's children to die of glioblastoma and leukemia. And I also wouldn't design ourselves to be capable of that in the first place because I actually don't take the Adam and Eve story for being truth. I think that that was completely wrong too. But either which ways I take it, if I were designing our cells, I would design our cells so we would only be infected by bacteria so we could actually overcome the complications that we come across. Something that we could actually learn from and grow from, not something that would unalive half of us at the ripe age of 10.
Right. And once again, without the ability for terrible things to happen, and we're not in a world that
Cancer isn't a cause of by
is
free
of free
choice.
will.
58% of cancer cases are not even due to any kind of environmental issue, but due to random genetic mutations. So cancer is not a free choice. I would have designed
Right.
ourselves
And
without
I
cancer.
agree.
So why do
Obviously,
we?
I'm not arguing pro cancer here. Obviously, I am anti cancer. But I'm saying we
So,
cannot understand God.
so then God
And I
isn't
mean, there's
good.
just, once again, huh?
So then God isn't good. If He's not designing
It's
ourselves
impossible
without
for,
cancer, why is He good?
because he granted us the gift of life, the ultimate
With
gift.
cancer, one
I
like
don't know
literally
if there's an,
1 out of 2 men and 1 out of 3 women will have cancer at some point in their lifetime.
is that, sorry, off topic. Is
Yes,
that actually a
that is
statistic? I didn't
actually
know
that
that.
is an accurate statistic from 2023, 2024, and 2025.
That's kind of wild. But regardless, I am not God. I don't know what it's like to create a race. And maybe without cancer, you have to change the laws of physics, and so,
No, you
like
don't.
humanity can't exist.
That's not true at all. So we actually can genetically modify. There's organisms out there that don't get that literally they get cancer, but they don't. They get so much cancer that the cancer gets cancer, and then it basically consumes itself. Hence, blue whales. And then there's also the blue whale paradox, which is basically they get tumors, which get tumors, and then the tumor kills itself. There's other examples of us mutating cells so that way they infinitely divide, and we wouldn't get older if those were our cells. We would be able to do there's a bunch of things like yes we don't have everything figured out because humans aren't perfect, but there is most certainly a way to develop human cells that don't get cancer without breaking physics and without breaking our life.
Right. And once again, I've never created a human race or a race in general, and I can't argue for God here or why that would happen.
So
But
if you're arguing that
through
God is all
faith,
good and he doesn't prevent cancer in his creation, that doesn't make him good. That's my argument.
I think, I mean, I could read this again, but we have neither the right nor the wisdom to question God and understand what is good and what is wise. I mean,
So
that's
by that logic, you actually can't even say that cancer is good or bad. You would have to say, I don't know. Cancer is I don't know. Cancer is neither good nor bad. That's what your argument would be.
I mean, this is in the reference of God's plan, so no.
So you believe that cancer is neither good nor bad, even when it's in 5-year-olds with leukemia.
I did not say that. If I just back up three more words, it says God's plan is good and wise.
So
So
God's plan for the 5-year-old with leukemia was good and wise.
I suppose so. I've never been God or created a race, and I don't know why some children need to suffer, but I, through faith, trust that God's plan is good and wise.
Yeah, I'm not gonna buy that. I'm sorry.
Which
Yeah,
is
people
fair.
with Huntington's disease,
Absolutely.
Stoneman disease, like there's a ton of diseases, ALS, where people literally start to become trapped in their own bodies because their neurons die. Like these are conditions we could have gone our entire lives without having. In fact, many people
Absolutely
do.
agree.
But God just had to quote unquote design ourselves to be that way. So if
Right.
God does actually exist, I would think that he is a horrible, horrible individual who does not actually care about humanity at all.
And I he gave us the ultimate gift of life, And even though we betray him through sin, he still allows us the gift of eternal life in heaven.
Would you tell
And
that to a person who is 6 years old and suffering from leukemia?
no, obviously not. I would not go and flex my non-leukemia-ness on a 6-year-old. But once again, I'm not God, the one who
But you're
created.
saying that God, like God's plan is good, and that He created life, and life is good. Like that's obviously not objectively true. When we're looking at there's different people with completely different instances where, yeah, sure, maybe you and I have pretty good lives, and I like life a lot. Um, but that one person with Huntington's disease who is worried that they're going to pass on their Huntington's to their kid, that one kid with like leukemia, another kid, like I remember seeing this one kid on Instagram. She was having like leukemia pain and like crying in her sleep. I wouldn't tell her, yeah, no, 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 don't worry. God has a good life planned for you.
That's more of a human, like, obviously you don't talk to people with cancer that way thing than trying to put myself in God's shoes.
So you
Sorry,
think
I'm
that
sick.
God has a good purpose for leukemia cancer patients? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, if they believe in him, they get an eternal life in heaven.
Oh, so do people who don't believe in God get an eternal life in heaven?
No, they do not.
Okay, so I wouldn't.
According to the Bible, correct. Yes.
Okay, so should you just unalive everyone who doesn't believe in God?
No, obviously not. I don't believe in killing people.
You just said that that a person with leukemia, despite suffering in their life, will have an eternal life in heaven. So why don't you try to, I guess, or actually, how would she if she doesn't, if she's atheist, if she's an atheist?
If she's an atheist, she will unfortunately not go to heaven. But
So
here's
you're
the
saying
thing.
that he
All of
had a
us,
good plan for her by giving her leukemia at the ripe age of 5 and then having her unalived and then
and
not having
so
her life? Like, I'm so confused.
the argument for heaven is that every single one of us deserves hell as we separate ourselves from God. It's the just punishment. We cannot understand it. It's the same verse that I read
How is that
before.
just?
Because we decided to separate ourselves from God. We decided to sin. We
Yeah,
as a
because he
human
gave us
race,
the option.
right? And once again, we don't
That's like
understand
putting a
why
knife in a cradle room.
I still don't understand this argument. But he
Okay,
gave
so
us.
the argument is that you can give somebody. So here's the argument: if you're setting somebody up for failure, that's not really good. So, for example, if you put naive children in a room with a knife, that doesn't
And
make you a good
we're
parent. If you put naive human beings in the room with something that causes them to fall and go into eternal suffering, basically, and eternal like sinning, that's also not being a good parent or a good God.
we're back to the same circular logic of I don't believe that free will can exist without the ability for sin.
That's not true. You can have free. He actually made us with free will, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So then he didn't need to put the option for us to sin.
But then we don't truly have free will as we have barriers on the ability of things that we can do. And now we're
Wasn't
just
the
robots that
apple
follow
that
God.
wasn't the apple from the tree of knowledge or something?
I don't know, something like that, yes.
All right. So just out of curiosity, why is the tree of knowledge something that causes us to go into suffering for eternity?
I I don't know. This is why Genesis is seen as poetic. Right, we're back to things that are just unprovable on either side.
But
But
it's not
with free
unprovable
will,
on either side because clearly there's evidence of evolution, not that we were made from Adam and Eve.
and I agree with evolution. I believe in evolution.
Okay, so then the whole Adam and Eve story didn't exist.
Yes, it did not literally happen that way, is my belief. So here, define evolution without using the word random.
Huh?
Define evolution without using the word random.
That's impossible because that is literally part of the definition of like what evolution is.
I 100%
It's
agree.
random
And
mutations.
the thing is, random is not something that makes sense in physics, right? If we're
Yeah, it
coding
is.
something,
In
it
physiology, it is. It does make sense actually.
yeah, only in the case of evolution.
Physiology, in the
But I
case of
don't believe,
physiology and biology, you know where evolution actually exists.
right, but random, like what creates random? How does random exist in a world where everything has reactions to stimuli? Every
The
atom, everything.
same reason why cancer exists due to random mutations.
Right, but I don't believe that randomness is truly just you cannot have randomness. Nothing is truly random, and rather the random mutation of genes is the genes that God chose. That is kind of it's not every Christian's belief, but that's kind of how a lot of Christians and me as a Christian would like to view evolution.
But that's literally how cancer develops.
Right, and we're back to the same argument that we had before where you say knife in child's room and I say free will.
Also, have you heard of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle?
I have not, and I'm happy to learn about it.
Yeah, so it's a fundamental concept in quantum physics stating that certain pairs of physical properties, most famously position and momentum, cannot be both known with arbitrary precision at the same time. Measuring one property more accurately inherently increases the uncertainty of another. There's also other concepts such as what is it? Delta S and the delta G standard equation, which is a measure of entropy, which is basically a measure of pretty much the randomness of the position of different molecules. So when you, for example, increase or decrease entropy, you can increase or decrease the favorability of a reaction. Now, a lot of the things that generated life, for example, the understanding of like abiotic life development, are due to concepts of the favorable energy, the delta G favorable energy equation, specifically in the context of how like amino acids and nucleic acids formed.
I'm
So
not gonna
all
lie.
things are predicated on uncertainty and randomness, which it does exist. Like if you want to say it doesn't exist, that's like it's
Isn't
your
that
opinion,
more
but nobody really
unmeasurableness,
follows that.
or isn't that more unmeasurableness? That's what it sounds like.
That's randomness.
No, it's just unmeasurableness. We don't have
No,
the as human beings.
both cannot be okay. Measuring one property more accurately inherently increases the uncertainty, and another. This is not due to limitations in measurement and technology, but rather an intrinsic property in quantum systems. Um, so basically, it is literally just randomness. Like there's certain things that are going to end up being more random than another.
Sure, I suppose that that could be proof of randomness.
Evolution is also proof of randomness as well.
Right, but that doesn't mean that God cannot be the randomness when it comes to evolution. It's not
That's
disproof.
not true. Okay, so then you're going to argue that every single cancer case is due to God. Because
Absolutely. If he created the universe, God created every single cancer case. Right, but that sigh is the same sigh that I've had every single time.
because you're saying
And
that God not preventing cancer in ourselves when clearly he can, if he's all powerful, still makes him a good being.
yes, because we don't understand the gift that we have gotten of life. Right, it's the
Yes, I'm
same
sure the
circular law that
5-year-old
we've had
leukemia
everything.
patient would agree with you.
They most likely would not. But there's also that guy who's gotten cancer 4 times on this app, and he absolutely loves God, and he's stoked to fight cancer. Right?
You're gonna say that to the dying leukemia 5-year-old.
I once again, that is just a human interaction of knowing how to interact with humans. I'm not going to flex on some leukemia child. It's two completely different stories. Does the leukemia child believe this? Most likely not. But
I
there are
really.
still stories of people who have fought cancer and are extremely Christian,
Okay, so
which
I'm gonna
was
ask
your
you this again. If you had a button in front of you that you could press to get rid of every single cancer case, would you press it?
yes.
So why doesn't God press it?
And I'm back to the same circular logic of it is
It's
impossible
not
for us to
circular.
understand
It is
why God
literally
still
just
exists.
logic. If one thing is
We
good, then why doesn't the person who's supposedly all good do the same thing that's good? That's not
right, we're
circular. That's
defining
just logic.
we're looking at good from a human perspective, and it is impossible to understand what is good in the godly perspective. We do not
So
understand
for
the
all we
story that
so
God
for
has
all
written.
we know, Schmurder could be good in God's perspective. Because clearly he also
No,
created that too. He made
no, because he
our
says in the
human
Bible that
cells
murder
could
is
have the
bad.
propensity for it.
No, because he says in the Bible that murder is bad. Would you agree that good things can come from
Oh,
bad
so
things?
now in the Bible when he says that Schmurder is bad, that's not poetic? What if he's just being poetic there?
This is once again back to we're not historians, and different historians believe that different texts of the Bible are poetic versus fact,
And that's
right?
my that is at the crux of things. So you can't tell me whether
But
something is poetic or historical. You're saying
because I'm
that
not a
the Bible
historian, but
says that Schmurder
historians
is
debate
bad,
it.
therefore God says Schmurder is bad, even though you don't actually know that. And considering the fact
It was
that
written in the
cancer
Ten
exists and
Commandments.
cancer takes the lives of millions of people every single year and affects pretty much 1 in 2 or 1 in 3 Americans every single year, then apparently cancer is good in his eyes, but Schmurder, no. Schmurder is bad.
Right, and we cannot understand the story that God has written. Would you agree that good things can come from bad things?
Good things do not come from a unalived 5-year-old from cancer. And the person who
Right.
I knew who got unalived from cancer, even though that made me interested in science, I still don't think that was a good thing. So even when like my interest in science comes out of it, that doesn't mean that it came from a good thing.
So let's say because of now your interest in science, you create the cure for cancer and are able to stop a million other children from
I
dying of
still don't
cancer.
think me losing that loved one was a good thing. And I don't think that every single 5-year-old who dies from leukemia also leads to a good thing.
Right. But we cannot understand God's entire plan. We can't. What if these bad things do lead to good things
Okay, so the unaliving
in the
of
long run?
the unaliving of Mustache Man, that led to him not unaliving more people. Arguably led to a quote unquote good thing. So was an unaliving Mustache Man a good schmurder?
Yes. I would say yes.
Oh,
Well,
so
he
now
murdered
God isn't
himself.
against schmurder.
So God is still always against murder, but good things can come from bad things. And that man killed himself. So that was not murder.
Isn't slip and slide? I'm trying not to break TikTok guidelines, but isn't slip and slide? Good lord, isn't that word also not accepted by God either?
I'm not sure I follow.
Isn't like unaliving yourself also not accepted by God in the same way schmurder isn't?
Correct. It is not. That was a sin,
Okay,
yes.
okay. So apparently God thought that was good because it led to good things.
Right. It's all God's plan. We cannot understand what
Oh my
God's entire
god.
plan is.
So first, unaliving yourself is bad according to the Bible, but unaliving yourself if you are the mustache man, no, that's good.
Well,
Let's
being the
see.
mustache
Cancer
man in itself
cases.
is bad.
Cancer cases, if they lead to the cure to cancer, that's a good thing. If they don't lead to the cure to cancer, that's still a good thing. But like, we don't really know because like we can't tell God's plan. Schmurder, if it takes out a serial unaliver, that's a good thing. But if it takes out if you do it, that's still a bad thing. Like, you see how this doesn't make any sense?
We I don't think this is going anywhere positive. So I will just happily concede and we can either talk about something else or wrap up because this part of the conversation, I think as a whole the debate has been wonderful, but I think this part is just clearly circular logic where we're covering the same points over and over.
Um, how is this circular logic?
Because you say, "Do you believe you should kill kids with leukemia?" I say, "No, God's plan,"
That's
and
not what I
then you
said.
say, "We're just going back and forth."
That's not what I said.
Okay.
So what I
How about
said.
I happily concede this part of the argument to you.
Okay. Well,
I think. I think as a whole, this has been semi-productive. If you want to have another debate, I'd be happy to debate things that are more provably true with facts. Maybe, I don't know, political things, anything. I think things that are more right. If we can't take any evidence from the first century, any written evidence, then we can't obviously debate things from there. If we're debating things that we can't measure, like God and things like that, once again, it's not going to be as productive. So I'd be happy to cover things that will be more productive in the future if you would like.
Sure. I'm down. What kind of politics would you want to talk about? I
I'm
don't.
happy. I'm happy to talk about that off stream. I don't want to get into a topic. I feel like politics is something that absolutely gets taken out of context. But I'm happy to talk about that off stream.
Yeah, let's talk about that off stream. I have no idea like what you're aligned with, but yeah, let's do it. I'm low key kind of tired, so I kind of need to get sleep anyways.
Completely fair. And I just want to say I still have a tremendous amount of respect for you. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I think you and Jackson are both incredibly smart. You've done a lot of good for this community, and I have a lot of respect for people that are willing to open debate.
Hey, I really respect that you wanted to come up in the first place. Takes a lot of courage to defend what you believe in, so I thought it was a pretty good conversation as well.
Awesome. I'm glad we had it. This was
All
good.
right.
And the biggest thing, oh, one more thing. I do live debates on occasion here and there. One thing I always like to end with is do you have anything from the stuff that we talked about that you would like me to look into more?
Um,
Like two or three things.
I'd probably say, man, that's a really tough question. Honestly, like since you seem to be more interested in like I'm gonna say honestly not really because a lot of the things that you argue for like you believe in evolution, so like I'm not trying to convince you of it, so there's not really a long list of sources that I would point you to, but I would say that one study that I was talking about earlier, or that one article about what is it? Let me see if I can.
Josephus.
Yeah, that one
The thing I
article.
have written down is look more into the efficacy of Josephus because it's clear I don't understand why it's an accurate text or
Here.
why it's an inaccurate
There's an
text.
open access article from one of the historians. It's called "The Figure of Pontius Pilate in uh,
Pontius Pilate.
Yeah, Pontius. Again horrible with Latin.
It's all good. Yep.
Pontius Pilate in Josephus compared with Philo and the Gospel of John. Yeah, I'm sorry,
Okay.
guys. I suck with Latin.
No
I,
problem.
I
Right.
speak fluent. I speak. Oh my god, I speak fluent Chinese to an extent. Not any Latin.
Yeah, it feels unfair for me to like start arguing history when or like Latin when that's not something that you are obviously in.
Yeah, no,
So
never learned it.
awesome. Well, thank you very much. I will definitely look into those things, and my DMs are open if you ever want to cover anything else. I feel like this was mostly positive.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay,
I will say I'm having issues leaving the live for some reason.
I got you. Oh wow, I have a ton of people accepting up. Oh, Juan's accepting up. Okay, I'll say hi to Juan. Hey.
Bro, what was that?
He wanted to talk
Listen,
about he wanted to talk about religion, and so I agreed.
listen, I would love to talk, but you're probably exhausted and I actually have to do some errands right now at 10:57 surprisingly. But I will say, have you heard of Aaron Wall, the physicist?
Oh God, I'm not the like. If you want to talk physics,
No,
please.
I'm saying because a lot of the stuff that you were saying about the universe being infinite or whatever, he has a great blog where he discusses like the nuance between the two because he's a Christian, but he's like one of like an elite physicist, and his blog like goes really in depth with everything about the
Yeah,
Kalam cosmological argument.
I have a few friends who work around particle accelerators who are also very elite, like quantum physics physicists. Uh, those like I trust their expertise, and I've also seen the data they've shown me. So like I'll read
That
into them, but like I'm a little more inclined to take the understanding that the universe is infinite.
I mean, regardless, Aaron Wall himself, he even argues that the universe he doesn't believe the universe being infinite or not is not the reason why he believes in God. I think he mentioned that in the article somewhere, but he does say that while the universe has evidence for it to be infinite, we still like he makes arguments for why we still believe or we have reason to believe it may not be something like that. I may be butchering it, but
Well,
I just
yeah.
recommend to search him up. I just recommend for you to search him up and search up Frank Turek because you're doing a lot of the suffering and morality arguments, and he has a lot of great answers to that. So I'm curious to see what you have to say about those stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take a look at it. What he says. But even if like so as you're aware, as I'm aware, science is not proof, it's just evidence. Right now
No,
I'm
I
saying
agree with you on that.
evidence strongly suggests that it is infinite, and I would also say that given the fact that we could have a DNA polymerase that goes back and repairs multiple mistakes, we could have a DNA polymerase that is a little bit more accurate in repairing double-stranded DNA damage, and that would prevent cancer. I think that's I don't think that it's good that we have cancer. I think that if we had a universe like if we were hypothetically designed, I would design our cells without cancer, but with the propensity to be infected. That way we could still have something to overcome and grow from, something that we can learn from, like fall down and watch, but something that isn't so something that is not so diverse, changeable, and has the potential for mutation. Which I have seen a lot of like the ethical arguments against like the whole entire like the problem of evil. I've seen those. They never address that. And that's the one thing, like, unless they're addressing like the deep down and dirty, like the why doesn't DNA polymerase like go back and repair mutations? Like it can do like we can design a DNA polymerase enzyme that potentially repairs things better, but it's not. We don't have that naturally. So like those are the sorts of things that I
Can
would
you hear me?
for.
Sorry. Basically, so you're basically arguing why does God allow suffering?
No, no, not that. I am
No?
saying no. I understand why God would allow some suffering. I'm talking about unsolvable, constantly mutational suffering that results in things like 5-year-olds with cancer. Like cancer is not something, as I said, like if I designed our cells, if I were God, I would design my cells to not have cancer or ALS or any of those kinds of diseases that are like they're not only diverse and like complete, maybe even have ALS because we don't actually know much about it, but like cancer specifically because it's so mutational. I would design ourselves not to have that because it's a problem we could not physically overcome. Every time we cure a cancer, it's really just going into remission. They have a 50% chance of getting another cancer anyways because one cell's already mutated. So like what I mean by like does like you can have cells without cancer and still have some suffering in the world. We already create our own suffering with murder and human greed, and there's also already suffering with infectious diseases. I'm just saying take out the cancer.
But that's still cancer is still suffering.
It's different kinds of suffering. So there's suffering you
There,
can
there are different
overcome,
there are different kinds of suffering, but I mean at the end of the day, from a general standpoint, why does God allow suffering of any kind?
but it's more nuanced than that because I can understand why God would allow some suffering because it's to help us grow, to help us become more complex like individuals and more intelligent. That makes sense. But why would God design something that we can't overcome?
It's not again, it's just a different kind of suffering though. Like it's not just can't overcome in the sense from like a point of
That's my
Makes sense.
point. It's like physiologically.
But it's not just it's not. I see where you're coming from, and again, I just wanted to hop on here to tell you that Frank Turek literally has answers to all this beautifully. I don't remember
I
everything he
highly
says.
doubt that, but I'll
He
look into
does.
it.
Aaron Wall, he goes over the BGV theorem, the singularity, all that stuff, the evidence. He's a great physicist. One of the physicists here in FSU recommended me to him, and these guys are obsessed with quantum particles over here. And he's great. I mean, he has great points. Frank Turek also great points. William Lane Craig is good. He's a hit or miss sometimes. So is John Lennox, but John Lennox does also go over a little bit of what you said with suffering and stuff. Or why does God allow evil? He kind of hits it back with another question. But yeah, I think those big four names are people who I recommend. At least to like look into their answers, and maybe you could
So
formulate what you're saying a little bit better.
I'm reading this from a Frank Turek post. Why does God allow suffering? If God exists, he is by definition omnipotent, omniscient, and benevolent.
Are you asking me, or are you reading from the post?
I'm reading from the post. So, like, this doesn't. Do you have a paper that he wrote that could answer this?
No, it's. I watch his YouTube videos. His YouTube videos are more recent. His papers are sometimes far back. I don't know. I don't really read his papers, but his YouTube videos, he does better because he gives lectures or seminars or whatever.
Because if he says resurrection, that still doesn't follow when the human brain physiologically cannot contemplate like religion before a certain like there's a certain age where you actually can't contemplate any kind of religion, so death's before that point.
Yeah, he also goes over why children, what happens if a child dies, or what happens if people never heard of God, or what happens if people are raised in a different family, all of that stuff. He goes over all of that. I search up like literally every single argument against God. He cross-examined, which is his brand, literally always has an answer to that stuff.
I really highly doubt it, but I'll take a look.
I mean, you gotta watch it. Like I don't like watching atheist videos, but I mean, I still do it to understand their arguments.
Okay, if God, why cancer? Let's say.
Where does it say that? Oh, is that an article?
No, it's a YouTube video.
Oh.
I'll look through it.
Yeah, I don't know if you have to go to bed, but I have.
I'm just kind of curious. It's a very short video. I'm just scrolling through it, looking through the transcript. Let's see, what does he argue here? So, yeah, so this is literally his argument is because it's free will. He says at 123 here that I think I know God, why God allows evil is because he allows free will. That makes no sense because cancer is not free will.
Look up. Okay, you're looking for a specific kind of suffering. I'd say, I promise you, if you go on Google, you're probably gonna find an answer in an article somewhere. That's all you have to do.
He's literally saying it in this YouTube video.
On what?
On the exact topic of children and cancer. So, if God, why cancer in children? This is a YouTube video where Frank is explaining why children have cancer, and he just gave the same argument that Baxam just gave, which was that there's free will. But that doesn't make sense. That doesn't follow.
I can't. I'd have to let me go watch his videos because like I have to like see the whole thing. Also, when he debates with the kids debating with him, they also bring up good points and he responds to those points. That's why I like watching his YouTube videos, not just reading the articles, because people go back and forth with him.
Yeah, all I'm gonna say is if his argument is because free will, that's not a valid argument because cancer is not a product of free will. If he argues that it leads to good things, cancer doesn't lead to good things, particularly for the person suffering. And then the third one that I hear a lot is that we wouldn't exist if we didn't have cancer. That's not true at all. So those are the 3 points that I would bring up. And I guess my main thing is like if suffering is in the world and suffering is needed to help us learn, I would say that I would design ourselves differently. And if I would design ourselves differently, why didn't God do it?
I don't think I would say cancer does not bring about any good. I know that sounds kind of crazy.
I also think
Um,
that that's kind of an insane thing to say when approximately like one in
but
two men get
because
cancer.
I see from the perspective of actually Billy Graham actually had an answer to this about why one suffering could probably aid in a bigger picture for your life, and it's probably just
I
God's
don't.
plan, how it all kind of comes together. It's kind of hard to see. I see both ways. Um, but yeah, I'd say I'd watched a
I
look.
really
I'm looking at this. Are you looking at this video? If God, why cancer in children?
yes.
Okay, yeah. I'll watch it.
He says the same
Um,
thing. I'm gonna be honest, I really do not understand why it's so difficult to like if I could design cells that are genetically modified to not get certain mutations, why can't God do that? Like that's not
but
a
you're
thing
asking
to
that God
ask.
to like you say you understand why God allows suffering, but then you're saying why can't God create like this perfect human who
No, no,
doesn't
no, not
have
perfect.
diseases
Not
but still
perfect.
allow suffering?
That's not what I'm saying. Not perfect. All I'm saying is something that we can actually overcome. Cancer is not something we can overcome because it's constantly mutating. Every new cancer patient is treated as if they have a different disease because we literally can't treat them the same. That's the reason why some patients with certain cancer treatments, they're not cured. Like, for example, an antibiotic would cure a bacterial illness, where that bacterial illness is not antibiotic resistant. And if it is antibiotic resistant, we can use other medications. Um, but either which way is what I'm saying, and we can also overcome antibiotic resistance by developing new antibiotics. Like these sorts of things are
Okay.
overcomable. Cancer is not.
It's like this inevitable thing that causes people to die.
It's not only inevitable, it's mutational. So it consists it'll like every new cancer patient is treated as if they have a different kind of cancer, even if it's from the same organ as the last patient that doctor had.
Yeah, so it's inevitable because if it's mutational, it's not going to stop.
Not just inevitable, but different, meaning we can't develop one cure and cure it all, and we can't cure it all in the same type. And there's like there's unknown cancer cases popping up all the time. So that's what I
Well, by
mean by
inevitable, I
like
mean
it's
like it's always going to be there. Like by inevitable, I mean it can't be overcome. Like it's just there. Maybe I'm misusing the words inevitable, but I mean,
yeah,
like you
it's
said, it
because
can't be
not all
overcome.
humans, yeah, not all human beings will get cancer in their life, but it's like the mutations themselves, like they lead to an infinite number, close to an infinite number of different possibilities.
Is
So
that what
like,
Baxton brought up about like could God create a rock so heavy he could not lift it?
he could create human beings without cancer. I mean, if we can create cells that divide without cancer, he clearly could.
Yeah, okay. I see where you're coming from. I'd look in for it from that perspective because I would honestly look at the suffering of like why does God allow suffering in general? Um,
I
but
can see why he does. Like it's,
I thought
I
that
mean,
was your
I would
point, but
if,
I see where you're coming from.
yeah, I see from it from like a perspective as like if I were God, what would I allow? And I would be like, okay, well, I would allow probably some diseases because it would force the creation that I have to continuously like get better and better. But I also wouldn't put a problem on their plate that literally can't be fixed.
I think. Hold on. I haven't seen the video, but I'm trying to understand where Frank Turek might be coming from. When you mean free, actually no, it's not free will. Sorry, but point is, you want to get rid of cancer because you think it's bad.
Not really. It's yes, it's bad, but it's also like how do I put this? There's not good things that come out of every single cancer case. So
Yeah,
like
but
I'm not
how would you
saying that good things
define
come out
good?
of
How
bad.
would you define good? Wouldn't you need like an objective moral standard to define this good?
I mean, good is technically subjective in my worldview, but like by God's worldview, there would be an objective moral good, and that would be by the objective morals set by God.
Would it be like, okay, if good is people not dying, why create something that would cause people to die that is also mutational?
Yeah,
That would not
remember,
be
I'm
good.
thinking from the context of hypothetically, if I were God, hypothetically, if God existed. So I'm not thinking from my worldview. My worldview is that good is subjective. But divine, like believing in the divine and God, that means there is an objective morality, and that objective morality belongs to the objective morals set by God. So if I'm going from that point of view, I have to think like that.
Okay, I see. Yeah, no, I see. So just to understand your point. Also, this guy intervention, you can't get an objective morality from a personal God. Um, just look up the moral argument. I don't know if this guy knows about it, but um, just so I could like, I'm gonna type this down because I would like to look into this when I have the free time. Your argument basically is, why would God create something that can't be overcome, suffering that can't be overcome?
If God
Right?
is good, why would God do that? Yeah.
God create suffering that can't be overcome. All right, awesome. I put that next to the other unanswered question: is neuromechanical matching real? If I was God, that would be the first thing on my mind.
Oh god, that's lovely. I'm sorry, that was too good.
Yeah, no, I did
I
not
need to
come
go.
in. I did not come in ready to debate. I just wanted to just offer you Frank Turek and Aaron Wall, because a lot of the stuff that you were talking about, they talk about. So if you could try to understand like where they might be coming from, maybe that could help your argument or phrasing your argument. I don't know, but they seem
I
to always have questions that I have. And some of the kids that interact with him, because he's always on school campuses, they ask a lot of like questions that I would ask, so it's kind of just nice watching that stuff.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I will say I have heard a lot of apologist arguments because I've actually been on quite a few I'm not sure if you see me on my like late nights, but I've watched a ton of like uh or not watched a ton, but I've been a part of a ton of like these kinds of debate sort of things. Um and I'm not a very good speaker, which is kind of why like I've already done this a billion times, which is why I was okay with doing it with Baxum. Um that sounded weird for a second, but either ways, that's kind of what I meant. Like, and I've done this quite a few times, so I'm kind of used to like. But we need bad things to happen. But there's, I've heard it a billion times, so I'll check him out because I haven't heard of his name before. But I'm
Yeah,
not.
it's literally what I do. Like at 3 a.m., I'd watch the debates of atheists versus
Have you seen
Christians,
Have you
apologists.
seen me on
What?
them? Have you seen me on some
You?
of them? Yeah.
Yeah, I used to I used to watch that guy's live, and then I would see you. Hold on, this guy said I haven't heard of the UFO dilemma. Divine intervention. Search up gotquestions.org and put up what is the UFO's dilemma, and then they answer your question there. Secondly, yeah, the guy with glasses, right? The curly hair guy with glasses.
Ian, and then I also sometimes go on Deconstructions Live.
Yeah, my gosh. I used to look at all like their arguments, and that's how I would actually find out Frank Turek, because I'd get their arguments and then search it up on Google to see what I find. And I ran into Frank Turek, and then I see that you're on with them. I'm like, what kind of crossover?
Yeah, I actually, I might, oh my god. I might have seen some of Frank Turek's arguments quite, like, because a lot of those kinds of things come up. It's kind of the same spiel, but I'll look into them. So,
Okay.
anywho, I
Yeah.
need to go to sleep, like, actually.
No, you're good. I do have to go do these errands. It's already 11:17, so
All right,
I'll let
ciao.
you go. See ya.